Starting live, welcome to
STS
Be the
Beyond
News.
You. And good day everyone, I am Christine
And
Hermosura.
I am Jana Ilagan, bringing you the eye on the news for ancient times.
We hope you are having a great time while watching our news live.
For the details of our news, we will be tackling about two infamous Italian artists who are Donatello and Michelangelo about their life and works in the Age of Rebirth, or also known as Renaissance.
Donatello's news team, pasok!
Good day, reporting live here in Florence, Italy. I am endlessly Ferrer here to bring you fresh news about who is Donato de Niccolo de Beto Bardi, also known as Donatello. Did you know that Donatello was an Italian Renaissance sculptor? He was an Italian sculptor that celebrated for lifelike sculptures like David, commissioned by the Medici family. He started getting commissioned for his work before he turned 20 years old. Throughout his career, he earned a reputation second only to Michelangelo for creating lifelike, intensely expressive sculptures. Donatello's father was Niccolo di Beto Bardi, and his father is a member of Florentine Wool Commerce Guild. Donatello was educated at the home of Martellis. The Palazzo or the Casa Martelli is a former residence of the influential Martelli family in Florence, and they were wealthy and influential family of bankers and art of patron. Donatello apprenticed with Ghiberti. He assisted Ghiberti in creating cathedral doors for the baptistry of the Florence Cathedral. Donatello was also had a close relationship with Cosimo de' Medici. Cosimo de' Medici is known for being the founder of one of the main lines of the Medici family that ruled Florence from 1434 to 1537. He was a patron of arts and humanism and played an important role in the Italian Renaissance. Okay, let me have some trivia about Donatello's background. Number 1, did you know that Donatello is only a nickname? It's his friends and his family who gave him his nickname. Number 2, what are the 3 things Donatello is known for? He is known for his sculptures that is made of marble, bronze, and wood. Last trivia, number 3, what kind of assistants he surrounded himself? He had a bit of surrounded himself with assistants who were handsome and had the same sexual orientation as himself. Here Donatello is somewhat choosy about his helpers, huh? Kidding aside. And that's all that you have to know about background of Donatello. Here is our fellow Bida newscaster, April Rose Eroma, reporting for Donatello's work.
Thank you, Endless. April Rose Eroma. I am live here in Florence, Italy, reporting for works of Donatello. In his art style, he was known for his lifelike emotional sculpture. First Renaissance artist to create a nude statue. His sculptures were more classical and different from medieval style because they have more depth. One of the famous works of Donatello is the David. David is most famous work of Donatello, created around 1440 to 1460. Perhaps Donatello's landmark work and one of the greatest sculptural works of the early Renaissance was his bronze statue of David. This work signaled the return of the nude sculpture in the round figure, and because it was the first such work like this in over 1,000 years. David is one of the most important works in the history of Eastern art. David was the first freestanding bronze cast statue of the Renaissance era, as well as the first nude sculpture of a male since the classical sculpture of ancient Greece. Second is the Penitent Magdalene. The Penitent Magdalene is a wooden sculpture of Mary Magdalene by the Italian Renaissance sculptor Donatello, created around 1453 to 1455. The sculpture was probably commissioned for a baptistry of Florence. The piece was received with astonishment for its unprecedented realism. This sculpture is now in the Museo dell'Opera del Duomo in Florence. Did you know that Donatello has 10 famous artworks? The Feast of Herod, Saint Mark, works for Saint Anthony of Padua, Judith and Holofernes, Saint George killing the dragon, Sacon, Saint George, Penitent Magdalene, equestrian statue of Gatamelata, and the last one, the most famous works of Donatello, is David. That's all from us. Back to you, Ilagan and Hermosura.
Thank you for the knowledgeable information, Donatello team.
We will now tune in with Michelangelo News Team. Let's go to their live now for the details. What an informative and detailed news is in it. Michelangelo's News Team, pasok!
Good day there at the news studio. I am Sarman, live reporting for one of the greatest living artists of higher Renaissance, Michelangelo. Michelangelo di Ludovico Buonarroti Simoni, or better known as Michelangelo, is one of the most popular artists of his lifetime. On March 6, 1475, Michelangelo Buonarroti was born in the Italian town of Capri, where his father, Ludovico Buonarroti, had previously worked as a Florentine government agent. At the age of 6, Michelangelo's mother passed away. Michelangelo was always interested in the art, but his father tried to dissuade him since he felt it was beneath the family's social standing. Nevertheless, Michelangelo triumphed. Michelangelo died on February 18, 1564 in Rome, Papal States. He was overseeing the construction of St. Peter's Basilica, for which he served as the architect, while also working on sculptures in his private studio at the time of his death. Prior to passing away, it is rumored that he was briefly ill, although the illness' exact cause has not been identified. When he passed away, he was just a few weeks away from turning 89. Michelangelo was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, poet, engineer, general constructor, and visual artist. A number of his works in painting, sculpture, and architecture rank among the most famous in existence. Michelangelo's reputation as an artist and true innovator led to commissions extending beyond just frescoes and sculptures. The artist worked on several impressive architectural plans across Italy during his lifetime. One of Michelangelo's key architectural projects was St. Peter's Basilica, for which the artist made some key contributions alongside other famous names of that time. Let us now continue with Michelangelo's famous paintings. Michelangelo's paintings are notable for the way he depicted the human body, which was in stark contrast to the style adopted by painters during the medieval period of Dark Ages. His figures were in proportion and lifelike in contrast to the style of medieval Christian art and included an immense amount of detail. The artist was well known for his interest in human anatomy, which developed through working with human corpses early in his career. This marked a revolution in European art. 182 paintings by Michelangelo are included in his artworks. One of his most well-known works of art is the creation of Adam. Michelangelo was one of the greatest artists of the Italian Renaissance, and his legacy lives on today. His greatest masterpiece was probably the interior of the Sistine Chapel, which he adorned with a stunning array of biblical frescoes, an astonishing feat of artistic endeavor that took him over 6 years to complete. It was painted from 1508 to 1512 and illustrates the creation story from the book of Genesis. The main figures in the painting are God and Adam. The creation of Adam stretches for over 500 square meters on the ceiling. It has more than 300 figures. In a famous piece of art that has inspired viewers throughout the years, Adam is seen in a reclined position with the God leaning towards him. The fingers of God and Adam, which are practically touching, are how Michelangelo chose to portray the heavenly breath of life. This well-known gesture shows the first man being created, with the creator's index finger poised to make a spark when it comes into contact with Adam's hand. One of Ghiberti's panels showing Adam in Eve is thought to have served as Michelangelo's inspiration for this piece. Although Michelangelo was a devout Catholic, his paintings show a great influence on themes from ancient Greece and Rome, as well as modern scientific concepts. Let's hear from my co-reporter Miss Limanda for more information and news. Once more, this is Miss Leolala broadcasting live here in our home.
Thank you, Zarma. I am Crystal Andimaanbal, reporting live for more news. Let us talk about more of Michelangelo's paintings. Here are some of his works. Frescoes on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, depiction of the creation of Adam interpreted from Genesis that my fellow reporter mentioned a while ago, the torment of Saint Anthony, the entombment, Donidondo, and etc. Among these works, Sistine Chapel ceiling is one of the best-known creations of Michelangelo. Here are the informations that you need to know about Sistine Chapel ceiling. It is considered as the cornerstone work of High Renaissance art. It is the large papal chapel built within the Vatican between 1477 and 1480 by Pope Sixtus IV, for whom the chapel is named. The ceiling was painted at the commission of Pope Julius II. Prior to Michelangelo's contribution, the walls were painted by several leading artists by the 15th century, including Sandro Botticelli, Domenico Ghirlandaio, and Pietro Perugino. After the ceiling was painted, Raphael created a set of large tapestries in 1515 to 1516 to cover the lower portion of the wall. Michelangelo returned to the chapel to create the Last Judgment, a large wall fresco situated behind the altar. The chapel's decoration illustrates much of the doctrine of the Catholic Church, serving as the location of papal conclaves and many other important services. Let us now move on to a hot-sizzling news from Michelangelo's sculpture. Michelangelo held sculpture to be the highest form of visionary art. Michelangelo's sculpture functioned as a spiritual excavation of nondescript forms to ones of beauty and pathos. Michelangelo's penchant for sculpture was closely connected with the age in which he lived, the Renaissance. The Renaissance was characterized by a rebirth of learning and connection to the classical world. Here is a list of his works regarding his sculpture: David, Pieta, Crucifix, Battle of the Centaurs, Head of Buffon, Madonna of the Stairs, and etc. Through all this, David and Pieta are the ones who became remarkable and famous of all till this present day. Let us now move on to what David is. David is a masterpiece of Renaissance sculpture created in marble between 1501 and 1504 by the Italian artist Michelangelo. It is a marble statue of the biblical figure David, a favorite subject in the art of Florence. It is located at the museum called the Academic Gallery in Florence, Italy. The statue soon came to symbolize the defense of civil liberties embodied in the Republic of Florence, an independent city-state threatened on all sides by more powerful rebel states and by the hegemony of the Medici family. The eyes of David, with a one glare, were fixated towards Rome, where the Medici family lived. Let us now move on to the fun facts about David. Did you know that David is towering a height of 5.16 meters? Almost 17 feet, but a shy short at 16 feet and 11.15 inches. It is also made of one single block of marble from the quarries in Carrara in Tuscany, which is one of the most widest in the world. It also weighs 5,660 kilograms or 12,478.12 in laps. Can you imagine how heavy that is? It is also made out of solid marble. The story of David and Goliath is a biblical one. It is found in Book 1 Samuel. This contains the story of the teenage David defeating the giant Goliath. Many statues before Michelangelo that portray this story always show David after he has defeated the giant, but Michelangelo decided to go against the current and portray his David before the battle. Because in this part, David depicts the cunning and skill he has by defeating Goliath by surprise, and so he did. Let us now move on to Pieta. This is the information or details that we need to know about Pieta. Pieta is a key work of Italian Renaissance sculpture by Michelangelo. It is now in St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. The statue was commissioned for the French Cardinal John de Ville, who was the French ambassador in Rome. It is the only piece Michelangelo ever signed. It is an important work as it balances the Renaissance ideals of classical beauty with naturalism. Michelangelo's interpretation of the Pieta is unprecedented in Italian sculpture. Pieta is a theme of an early Christian art depiction of the Virgin Mary supporting the body of the dead Christ. The Pieta was widely represented in both painting and sculpture, being one of the most poignant visual expressions of popular concern with the emotional aspects of the lives of Christ and the Virgin. Before we go back to the main studio, here are some surprising facts about the Renaissance artist often called the Divine One. Did you know that he was first noticed due to attempted fraud? He was also used his art to enact vengeance. And did you also know that Michelangelo didn't want to be known as a painter? But in fact, he would probably be insulted if you first referred him to as a painter and not as a sculptor, because Michelangelo generally referred himself as a sculptor but not as a painter, a poet, or an architect. Again, this is Crystal and Limaandal reporting for STS Vida News.
Thank you, Crystal and Sarah, for another knowledgeable information. We sure do learn a lot about the tools of the Renaissance Italian artists, but I have a question. Did you know how the Renaissance and partner?
What a good question to ask, partner.
After a series of tragedies known as the crisis of the late Middle Ages came a period of exclusive social and cultural development. The Renaissance was called rebirth because many people believed that the Renaissance was a rediscovery of the world. There was a burst of enthusiasm for learning about everything, considering a cavalcade of disaster that befell Europe after the Roman Empire. Nothing could describe the Renaissance better than a complete rebirth of Europe. The Renaissance petered out by the end of the 17th century. The effects of lengthy and devastating religious warfare and the impact of the Counter-Reformation, supported by the might of the Habsburg dynasty, so the revival of Greco-Roman ideas fall from favor. The overall impact of the Renaissance upon European history remains an area of debate among historians. The end of the Renaissance gave birth to many critical and intellectual movements, with the era having a large backlash. This period left such a mark on the history of Europe that it still shapes much of our modern world today. It is only with the passage of time that we in present day can assess the importance of Renaissance. The period has been seen by some as the bridge between medieval period and the modern era. The real legacy of the Renaissance is in the great works of art left behind in instigating and the gradual shape and true from the divine of the secular. Centuries later, we can trace some origins of the scientific revolution and enlightenment to the foundation laid by the rebirth of Greco-Roman art and literature in the Renaissance period. Let's watch this.
So Julius II ascended to the papacy, which heralded the beginning of the Roman Golden Age. Half a decade later, Henry VIII assumed power in England, which set the stage for the Reformation, a spiritual movement that forever divided the European continent. Earlier humanist thinking influenced this schism, as did the sacking of Rome, which prevented Henry VIII's divorce from Catherine of Aragon. In the mid-16th century, tensions caused by the Reformation were eased by the ascent of Elizabeth Tudor to the English throne. This brought about England's own Golden Age, which brought about education reforms that saw the enlightenment of the Renaissance continue in England, who spread her influence to fill some of the power void left by the end of the Italian Wars and brought Europe into a new age. The rapid changes taking place over this extended time frame offers many lessons for us. early investments in the arts and sciences helped bring Europe out of a seemingly endless period of darkness.
Thank you, Christine. Protestant Reformation really simplified a bunch of war happening in Europe between Protestants and Catholicism, and it causes a bunch of people. Now, we already talked about earlier how Italy was sacked by the whole Roman Empire, and so what happened is, since the Catholic Church in the American Republic are devastated, money started to move out of Italy and spread in France, Germany, and England. And we got the true Renaissance, but as the Renaissance falls, the money eventually burned out. It burned out as everything keeps on going and then eventually it's gone. Because of the widespread devastation that happens in the whole Roman Empire in Italy and France, during this time people don't have time to focus on art. They don't have time to focus on founding Renaissance because they are working on the counter-information. Because the best way to show that you are not about collecting money from indulgence is to spend more money to make better artwork. But this artwork is not in the Renaissance style. It is glorifying the church. So that is how you start to see the massive shift away, and so that is how the Renaissance ends. It just starts and then it fizzles out over time. That's all for today's Time Sizzling News. Again, this is STS Be The News, news with no bias, news with no expectation, delivering nothing but the truth. This has been Jana Ilagan
And Christine Hermosura,
bringing you the latest news around the globe.
thank you for being with us.
I am endlessly Emperor.
I am Christine Hermosura.
I am Jana Ilagan.
Miss Leolala.
This is Crystal and Lima Andal,
April Rosa Meroma.
reporting for STS Vida News.